I had a bit of a disturbingly ironic realization this morning while I was prepping for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was sitting there, setting up a new password manager, enabling two-factor on my bank account, checking my VPN. I must have spent 45 minutes fortifying my digital life.
Which is smart. I mean, we live online. You have to lock the digital doors.
Right. But then I got up to get coffee, walked past my front door, and it hit me. I'm protecting my actual physical body and my family with a piece of hardware I bought at a big box store maybe 5 years ago for 20 bucks. And according to this stack of research we have today, that lock is about as effective as a wet paper towel.
It's the great modern paradox, isn't it? We build these like digital Fort Knoxes, but our physical firewall, the actual barrier that stops someone from walking into our living room, is often stuck in the 1970s.
We trust our safety to the lowest bidder.
We do.
And that is exactly what we are going to fix today. We are upgrading the physical firewall. And we aren't just talking about, don't lose your keys.
Yeah.
We're going deep into mechanics of high security locks, the psychology of a burglary, and why the person you hired to touch your door matters just as much as the lock itself.
That last point is so crucial. A residential locksmith isn't just the person you call when you've locked your keys in the car at 2 in the morning.
Right.
They're security consultants. They are the ones who truly understand the difference between just locking a door and actually securing a home.
Speaking of the people you hire, we really need to talk about our partner for this deep dive.
Absolutely.
If you are in Los Angeles and you're listening to this thinking, okay, I need to do this, you need to know West Point Locksmith.
Yes. Because we are going to get into some pretty scary stuff later on about scams and, unskilled people just drilling out your locks. West Point Locksmith is the antidote to all of that.
They're the 5-star rated local experts. They cover the whole LA area, and they do everything. Emergency lockout, sure, but they specialize in the high security stuff, the rekeying, the smart lock integrations we're about to cover.
And they're available 24/7.
All day, every day. So before we even start, just put this number in your phone, 310-295-4040. That's West Point Locksmith.
It is so much better to have that number saved now than to be frantically Googling when you're standing outside in the rain.
100%. So let's get nerdy for a second. I want to understand the mechanics of insecurity. The training manuals we looked at use this concept, the flatland model, to explain how a key even works.
Right.
I use a key every single day, but honestly, I couldn't tell you what's happening inside that little metal cylinder.
It's a mechanism that's been around since, the ancient Egyptians, but the modern version is just pure mechanical engineering. So picture the lock cylinder, you've got the plug, that's the part that turns when you put the key in, and it's sitting inside a hull, which stays put.
Okay, so a cylinder inside another cylinder, got it.
Exactly. And drilling down through both of those parts are a series of chambers, usually 5 or 6 of them.
Okay.
Inside each chamber is a little spring and a stack of 2 pins. The spring just pushes everything down.
So the pins are what's blocking the plug from turning.
Precisely. The top pin, the driver pin, sits across the line between the plug and the hull. It physically pins the lock shut. It's like a tiny deadbolt on a microscopic level.
Sure.
When you slide your key in, those jagged cuts on the key lift the bottom pins, the key pins, up.
And the idea is to lift them to a very specific height.
To a perfect height. You want to lift them until the gap between the key pin and the driver pin aligns perfectly with the edge of the plug. We call that the shear line.
The shear line. Okay.
When all 5 or 6 of those gaps line up perfectly on the shear line, the obstruction is gone. The plug can turn, the door opens.
Okay, that makes total sense. That sounds pretty secure, actually, like you'd need the exact right key. But then I read the section on the binding defect.
Yes.
This is the part that explains why lock picking is even possible. And honestly, it kind of ruined my faith in modern manufacturing.
It is the dirty little secret of the industry. I mean, in a perfect theoretical world, a math problem world, all those pin chambers would be drilled in a perfectly straight line and every pin would be perfectly round.
And if that were the case,
picking a lock would be impossible. You'd have to lift every single pin to the exact right height at the exact same time.
But we don't live in a perfect world.
No, we live in a world of manufacturing tolerances. The drill bits wander a tiny bit. The holes are a fraction of a millimeter off-center. So when you try to turn the plug without a key, it doesn't hit all the pins at once.
It hits one pin first.
The binding pin, that's the one. It's taking all the physical load. So a lock picker applies a little bit of turning with pressure tension, and then they feel around with a pick for the one pin that feels stiff. They lift it up until, click, it clears the shear line.
And because the holes aren't perfectly aligned, the plug turns just a tiny, tiny bit and traps that pin up there.
Exactly. It gets stuck on the little ledge created by that tiny rotation. You set the pin, and you just move on and find the next one that binds. You're solving the puzzle one piece at a time.
Wow.
On a cheap lock, you know, the kind you get in a blister pack at a big box store, the tolerances are so sloppy, a total novice can kick them in seconds.
That is just terrifying. And the sources also mentioned bumping. That sounded less like a puzzle and more like, well, violence.
It's just kinetic physics. Think of a pool table, right? You have a row of balls. You hit the front one with the cue ball.
And the energy transfers all the way through, sending the last ball flying. Okay.
Bumping is the same thing. You insert a specially cut bump key and you smack it with a hammer or even just a screwdriver handle. That shock wave shoots through the bottom pins and makes the top driver pins jump up. For a split second, they all clear the shear line.
And in that split second, you turn the key.
And you're in. A standard front door can be bumped in under 10 seconds, and it leaves almost no sign of forced entry.
Okay, so this brings us to the solution, the Locksmith upgrade. If I call a pro like West Point Locksmith, they're not just putting in another standard lock that can be bumped, right? With the guide talks about high-security cylinders.
This is where you get what you pay for. A professional locksmith will install cylinders that use what are called security pins. These are designed specifically to mess with the lockpicker's head.
I saw diagrams of these. They look like little mushrooms or spools for thread.
Yes, exactly. Imagine a pin that looks like a spool skinny in the middle, wide at the ends. If a picker tries to lift it, that skinny middle part allows the plug to turn just a little bit.
So the picker thinks they got it.
They get a full set. The lock feels like it's opening, but it's not. It's a trap. To get that pin unstuck, they have to release their tension, which makes all the other pins they've already set just drop back down.
So they have to start all over.
It turns a 30-second job into a 20-minute nightmare. And thieves do not have 20 minutes. They have maybe 2 before a neighbor gets suspicious.
And there are other things too, right? Like different keyholes.
Oh yeah, paracentric keyways. Imagine the keyhole isn't a straight slot, but a jagged, winding shape. It's so tight and twisted, you literally can't even fit a standard pick tool inside to reach the pins.
It's physical denial of access.
It is, and that is the difference between buying a lock and buying security.
I love that distinction. Okay, let's pivot to a really practical scenario. New homeowners. You just bought a house, or maybe your roommate moved out on bad terms. The immediate instinct is, I need to go buy all new locks. But the research suggests that's actually a huge waste of money.
It usually is. I mean, unless the hardware is physically broken or rusted or just plain ugly, you don't need to replace the metal knobs and handles. You just need to rekey them.
Break that down for us. What does rekeying mean?
Rekeying is basically surgery for your lock. A locksmith comes, takes the cylinder apart, dumps out all the old pins, that's the combination that match the old key, and then they insert a brand new set of pins that match a completely fresh key.
So the old key is dead.
Completely useless. It'll fit in the hole, but it won't turn. And the cost difference is massive. Replacing high-quality hardware on a whole house could cost you, what, $500, $1,000?
Easily.
Rekeying is a fraction of that. Usually in the range of $70 to maybe $160, depending on how many doors you have.
That's a huge tip. But there was one term in the rekeying section that confused me, and then when I understood it, it scared me. Maison keying.
It sounds so fancy, doesn't it? Like a French hotel.
Yeah, it does.
But it's a security disaster. We see this all the time in apartment complexes or condos. Maison just means house. The idea is that your individual apartment key can also open the main front gate of the complex.
That sounds convenient.
Of course, but think about the mechanics of it. To make one lock open for, say, 20 different keys, the locksmith has to put these little things called master wafers inside the pin stack.
Okay, what does a wafer do?
Well, remember the shear line, that one specific gap that lets the log turn. A wafer creates a second shear line, and if you stack a bunch of them, you're creating third, fourth, fifth shear lines. You're basically turning the lock cylinder into Swiss cheese.
So there are so many potential gaps that almost anything could open it.
Exactly. I've seen Maison-keyed locks that could be opened with a random key from a completely different building or even a flat screwdriver just because there were so many shear lines available. It's a massive vulnerability.
So if you live in a building like that, you really need a security audit.
Yeah.
You need to know if there are ghost keys floating around.
You absolutely do. And this is a great reason to call a professional like West Point Locksmith if you're in LA. They can check if your locks have been compromised by this kind of convenience keying.
Yeah.
They can rekey your personal door so that you are the only person with access.
That number again is 310-295-4040. It's about taking back control of your perimeter.
Mm-hmm. And they can also tell you if your deadbolt is actually doing its job. I think you saw the part about the throw of the bolt.
Yeah, that was critical. If the bolt only extends like a ½ inch into the door frame, it's basically useless. A good kick will just flex the frame enough for the bolt to pop right out.
You want a 1-inch throw. You want that bolt burying itself deep into the structure of the house.
Which brings us to the future. The 2025 industry report we looked at, it's all moving from brass to bytes. The report literally says, data is the new key.
It's the biggest shift in the industry in decades. Smart locks are not a gimmick anymore. They're becoming the standard.
I was looking at the reviews for some of the top models, the Aquara U100, the Ultralock, the Lockley. The features are just wild. The one that stood out to me as a parent was temporary access.
That's the game changer. Think about the dog walker or a contractor or the house cleaner. In the old days, what did you do? You hid a key under the mat.
Which is basically an invitation for someone to rob you.
It's terrible security. With a smart lock, you can create a code that only works on Tuesdays between 2:00 and 4:00 p.m. era. The second they leave, that code is dead. And you get a notification on your phone that says dog walker entered. You have a full audit trail.
An auto lock. I can't even tell you how many times my kids leave the front door wide open.
Auto lock solves the human error problem. But we have to talk about the vulnerabilities too. The reviews highlighted the smudge attack.
This was fascinating. It's so low tech.
It really is. You have a shiny touchscreen keypad. You use the same 4 numbers every day, say 1, 2, 3, 4. Over time, the oil from your fingers leaves little smudge marks on those 4 numbers.
And a thief just walks up, tilts their head to catch the glare.
Sees the 4 greasy buttons and just starts guessing the combo.
That is why I thought that Pin Genie feature on the Lockley locks was so cool.
It's brilliant. The Pin Genie shuffles the numbers on the screen every single time you use it. The number 1 might be in the top left corner today and the bottom right tomorrow. You can't guess the code by looking at smudges or watching someone's hand move because the pattern is always different.
Now, here's the question I think a lot of people have. If I buy this fancy robot lock, can I just screw it onto the door myself? Do I really need a locksmith for a gadget?
You can do it yourself, but you run the risk of creating a huge digital vulnerability. This is the integration problem. Is the lock Z-Wave? Is it Matter? Is it Wi-Fi? And most importantly, is the firmware updated?
Because if it's not updated, it's hackable.
It's a computer with a known security hole on your front door. A professional locksmith today is part mechanic and part IT support. They make sure the physical installation is solid because a smart lock on a weak door is pointless, and they make sure the digital setup is secure.
That blend of physical and digital security is actually a specialty of West Point Locksmith. I noticed they handle smart lock installations and even car key programming, the transponders and fobs.
Which are basically encrypted computers now. You can't just get a new car key cut at the hardware store anymore. It needs to be programmed. West Point really bridges that gap between the mechanical and the digital worlds.
So if you want to upgrade to a smart system, but you don't want to accidentally firewall yourself out of your own house, call West Point at 310-295-4040. Get it done right.
And secure your network while you're at it.
Now we need to talk about the onion.
The layers of security.
Yes. The source material really emphasizes that a locksmith performs a security audit. They don't just look at the lock, they look at the whole context. And there was one tip here that I think is worth the price of admission alone. The strike plate screws.
This is my absolute favorite tip because it costs about $5 and it changes everything. The strike plate is that little metal piece on the door frame where the deadbolt goes in.
And it's usually held in by these tiny little screws.
In standard construction, even in million-dollar homes, builders often use screws that are only ½ an inch long. They barely bite into the decorative trim around the door. They don't even reach the actual structural stud of the house.
So someone kicks the door.
The lock holds, but the wood frame just splits instantly. The door flies open. It's the absolute weakest link.
And the fix is just longer screws.
Replace those tiny screws with 3-inch hardened steel screws. They go through the strike plate, through the trim, and bite deep into the 2x4 stud that's behind the wall. You are literally tying the lock into the skeleton of the house.
And that makes the door kick resistant.
It increases the strength tenfold.
Uh-huh.
You could hit that door with a battering ram, and the wood around the lock would likely hold. It is the single most effective physical upgrade you can make.
I am literally going to go home and check my screws tonight. That seems so obvious.
It is, but nobody ever thinks about it until after a break-in.
The notes also mentioned commercial-grade hardware for homes. Is that overkill?
You know, it depends on your philosophy. Commercial locks grade 1 hardware are built to be used thousands of times a day. They're heavier, they use better metal, they're much harder to drill. If you want a lock that's going to last 30 years and feel like a bank vault every time you turn the key, it's a valid investment.
Okay, we have to navigate to the darker side of this industry now. The scams, the bait and switch. Reading about this made my blood boil a little bit.
It should. It's a predatory practice that targets people when they're at their most vulnerable.
We've all seen the ads. You search for a locksmith on Google, and the top results say, service call $15 or $29 lockout service. And it sounds like a great deal.
And that's the hook. The investigative reports we read describe this very specific script these scammers follow. You call the number, usually goes to a call center, maybe overseas, not a local shop. They dispatch a technician who arrives in an unmarked car.
Maybe a generic magnetic sign slapped on the door.
Maybe, but no uniform, no permanent address. And then the theater begins. They look at your standard lock, your everyday quickset, and they just lie. They'll say, oh, wow, this is a high-security commercial lock. I can't pick this.
Which we know is garbage because of the manufacturing tolerances we just talked about.
Correct. But they use that lie to justify the next step, the drill.
The drill.
This is the biggest red flag in the entire industry. The sources are unanimous on this. A real professional views drilling a lock as a failure. It's a last resort. They have the skills to pick it, bump it, or use specialized tools to open 90% of residential locks without a single scratch.
So if the guy walks up to your door, looks at the keyhole for 2 seconds, and immediately reaches for his power drill,
Stop him. Tell him to leave. Because once he drills that lock, he destroys it. And now you're a hostage. That $29 service call suddenly becomes $150 for the drilling labor, plus another $300 for a replacement lock that's usually a cheap knockoff worth $10.
so you end up paying $500, $600, $700 for a simple lockout.
Exactly. And you're left with a broken door frame and a cheap, insecure replacement lock.
So how do we verify a real pro? How do we avoid the scammer?
Verification is everything. Look for a local address and actually check it on Street View. Scammers often use fake map pins that lead to, like, a grocery store parking lot or a vacant lot. You want a real brick-and-mortar location.
And what about certification?
ALOA, the Associated Locksmiths of America. That's the gold standard. And critically, ask for a total price before they start any work.
Not just an estimate.
A firm range. A real professional knows what a standard lockout costs. If they refuse to give you a number until after the door is open, or if the price keeps changing, that's a trap.
This all circles back to why we keep mentioning a company like West Point Locksmith. In an industry that has so much smoke and mirrors, you want the known entity.
Trust is the product. You are literally giving someone access to your castle. West Point has the 5-star reviews. They're a known local entity in Los Angeles. You aren't rolling the dice with a random Google ad.
So if you're in LA, save the gambling for Vegas. Call West Point Locksmith at 310-295-4040. Whether it's 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, get a pro who won't destroy your door just to charge you for a new one.
And they actually answer the phone, which, as we all know, is half the battle in the service industry.
So true. 310-295-4040. West Point Locksmith. All right, as we wrap this up, I want to zoom back out. We started this whole deep dive by talking about the physical firewall.
It's all about peace of mind. Security isn't just one gadget. It's the layers. It's that onion we talked about.
Right. It's having good hardware with security pins so it can't be picked in 10 seconds. It's having key control rekeying when you move in so there are no ghost keys floating around.
It's the smart access management, knowing who is coming and going so you don't have keys hidden under mats. And it's the physical strength of the door frame itself with those 3-inch screws.
And it's recognizing that the locksmith is a skilled tradesperson. They are engineers of access. When you hire a good one, you are paying for their expertise and vulnerabilities, not just their ability to turn a wrench.
Exactly. You're paying them to think like a thief so that you don't have to.
So my homework is clear. I'm checking my strike plates tonight. And for our listeners, especially those of you in Los Angeles, put that number in your phone, West Point Locksmith, 310-295-4040.
Stay secure, everyone.
I want to leave all of you with one final thought from the research that really stuck with me. We spend thousands of dollars protecting our digital data. We have passwords for our passwords. We worry about identity theft constantly.
We do.
But then we go home, and we lock our families and all of our most precious physical possessions behind a $20 lock that can be opened by a stranger with a piece of bent metal and a YouTube tutorial.
It really forces you to ask the question, is your physical firewall as strong as your digital one?
Something to think about as you turn that deadbolt tonight. Thanks for diving in with us.
Stay safe.